Journey Across Gene's Saga. Book 1. Now, Then, To Come. Part 3. To Come. Chapter 1. Trell. 2nd, 2002. Poplar Hall. I was today's years old, 22, when I made my first ever journal entry. I'm writing it right now. I have a blue ballpoint pen that I found in a box in my dorm room, probably from last semester. But I bought this notebook especially just for this class. It's green and gold like the colors of this university, and thick, about the size of my math textbook. I bought it right after class today when I found out that we have to keep a journal that the professor is going to check and read over throughout the course. We have a weekly word count, and it's like almost half our grade. Wild. I'm excited to start a journal. I just turned 22 this summer. Why hadn't I started a diary or something before now? This is my second semester here at college, and I'm taking Introduction to Women's Studies and 3 other classes this term. I'm pretty excited about this course so far. Our first assignment is to read Chapter 1 and then write our first journal entry from one of the prompts at the end. The chapter is entitled Sex, Gender, and Social Construction, and it opens with this quote from an anonymous author. Our lives are structured around ideas of what is appropriate for a girl and what is appropriate for a boy. Isn't that the truth? I think it's important to write my notes in here so that my teacher, hi Professor Gay, knows what I'm basing my answers to the prompts on and that I'm actually doing the readings. Chapter 1. Several key concepts. 1. Nature versus nurture. Biology versus social forces. 2. Sex. Characteristics based on anatomy and or biology used to classify a person as male or female. For example, sex organs, chromosomes, hormones, brain structure, and traits like breasts or facial hair. 3. Intersex. They, singular, the person, have sex traits that make them different from predominant notions of biological femaleness and or maleness. For example, genitals that seem somewhat like both sexes, larger clitoris that resembles a penis, external organs resembling one, but internal systems that resemble another, for example, one ovary, one testicle, varied secondary characteristics like body shape, body hair, etc. Some intersex people may find out later in life during puberty or adulthood, and some may never know because externally they resemble one sex, but internally is where the mix is. Only 1.7% of population is intersex. 4. The social construct of sex. Sex categories get simplified for social reasons and ignore the spectrum. People are used to a gender binary. Sex, to some degree, was constructed by humans. 5. Social construct. Concept or perception of something based on the collective views developed and maintained within a society or social group. Varies among people and cultures. Comes from social practices, not nature. One's socially constructed sex is not only determined by biology, but also by human activity and human choice, including political, economic, and cultural factors. 6. Assigned sex. A term used instead of biological sex to show that sex is more than just biological fact. 7. Sex identity. What one understands to be their own sex with a deeply held internal sense. 8. Revised definition of sex. Humans and other organisms are not simply male or female. A better definition would describe that sex is related to our chromosomal, chemical, and anatomical organization, would also take into account that it is more than just biology. 9. Gender. Attributes regarding appearance and behavior. Traditionally, gender has been the non-biological aspects of being female or male in a gender binary, cultural expressions. 10. Gender expression. How one expresses how they identify, externally through one's clothing, hairstyle, the way one acts, moves, and speaks, whether or how one wears makeup, their pronoun, among other things. 11. Gender identity. One's internal sense of one's gender or of belonging to a group or category. Western cultures believe often that sex entails gender. Femme versus butch can be used for gays that act more feminine or masculine or don't conform to one. Sex and gender should not be conflated. Sex should describe reproductive organs. Feminine and masculine for gender. Sex is more biological, and gender is less biological. 12. Transgender. When one's sex identity, gender identity, and or gender expression are not in alignment with binary ideas of one's assigned, designated sex at birth. Some trans individuals undergo hormone therapy and or gender confirmation surgery. Only a small number of trans individuals desire so-called sex operations or to medically transition, nor is it necessary. Socially, some trans individuals may choose a different name and pronoun. 13. Cisgender. People whose gender identity aligns with their assigned sex at birth. 14. Gender nonconforming. People whose gender is different from perceived societal expectations. 15. Genderqueer. Express gender non-normatively, may wish to stress the idea that one's gender can change over time or is in constant influx. 16. Revised definition of gender. Gender is not an either-or situation, less biological and more socially constructed. Gender as a process, something one does, not something that one has. Unstable and open to change, flexible. The categorization of gender is a problem in and of itself. Categories are bound to fall short. I have to stop here and reflect. So, I've gotten gender wrong all along. When I am asked my gender on a form, I should put down man, not male. But I don't feel like a man. My dad is a man, and I would never want to be compared to him in that way. He's a man's man, degrades women, talks vulgarly about them to make his buddies laugh, gets physically violent with them, or at least used to. So, no, I refuse to be a man. I am pretty feminized in the sense that I spend most of my time with women and feel more comfortable around them. And when we're together, we do women things like sit around and talk about dating and eating ice cream. I've seen women do this in the movies too. I don't have much to contribute when the topic of that time of the month comes up because I don't menstruate for the lack of sexual parts. I buy so-called women's jeans because I like how they fit better. Overall, I can relate more to women than I can to certain men. Out of all the men that I can relate to, gay men are at the top. Unless they are the mask-only kind of men that are looking for non-girly guys to date. I definitely am not anyone's masculine guy. The entire mask-only identification on gay.com is gross and exclusionary. Whatever. 17. Sexual orientation. The attraction one has to others based on one's sex and or gender in relation to another's sex and or gender, more than gay, bi, or straight, and is fluid, non-static. It can change over time. 18. Asexual. Someone who experiences little to no sexual attraction to other people. Also non-static, fluid. Important note. Sex identity, gender identity, and sexual orientation are all independent of each other. There can be many combinations of the above. Basically, it's messy. Prompt. Write about a time that you were made aware of your gender. Use some of the key concepts from the chapter to show that you understood them. I have so many stories about my gender struggles, but one stands out, so I'm going to listen to my intuition and write about the time I was called a sissy by people that I loved, and so it hurt. I think it'll fit nicely with the fact that one of our goals in this course is to remember the women in our family. Unfortunately, this story doesn't do a good job at honoring my grandma and my aunt, but it is an important memory that I carry with me, and it is a part of their legacy. I had just turned 8 years old the day before my cousin, Angela, had her birthday celebration. Her mom is my dad's older sister. At that time and age, I only saw my downstate aunts and cousins twice a year or so. They lived closer to the big city, and they had nice houses that didn't smell of mold or wood stove. This particular aunt in question, her husband, her daughter Angela, and Angela's brother, had driven the 2 hours up to the country to have a riverside birthday bash for her. Everyone was there. Our grandma and grandpa, me and my mom, dad, and 3 siblings. My dad has 3 sisters and 2 brothers, and at that time, there were 10 cousins or so. We were all there. The goal was to float the river on inner tubes from old tractor tires that you could rent from a small store upriver. We'd start upstream and then rest on the lower high banks past the island where my dad had built a hunting shack. It was public land, so the shack was probably illegal. There we would eat hot dogs and chips, and then my cousin would smash open her piñata, and we'd all scream and scramble for the candy. Then there was the cake. My grandma always made us the coolest birthday cakes. She is such a good cook. That year, my cousin, who was turning 7, got a race car cake because her parents had just gotten her and her brother brand new kids' race cars. Their family was big into that junior NASCAR scene, as I like to call it now. I have no idea what the races were really called. My immediate family didn't have that kind of money. So there were tons of cousins, aunts and uncles, parents and grandparents floating down the river. I couldn't swim very good yet, so I had to wear a life jacket, which was fine with me because the rubber from the inner tubes always seemed to rub my nipples to the point they would get raw, and that was a nightmare. The life jacket was a nylon material and thus much less abrasive on my sensitive bits. Plus, the life jacket made me look like I had huge chest muscles. When we finally got to our picnic spot, we were all starving. Playing in the water was hard work. "Are you sure you want to eat now?" the parents would ask. "You know you can't swim for a half an hour after you eat. Remember how I told you about Graham's little brother who died when he was just a baby in two inches of water?" My parents at least were very strict about this rule. "Yes, we're sure." Our growling stomachs forced words from our mouths. It was a particularly sunny day that day, but there was the occasional straggler cloud that would cover the sun up enough to make it chilly with the right breeze. So I grabbed my Mr. T blue cotton t-shirt and pulled it on over my head. I felt the material stretch to the seams as it took the shape of my ripped, bulky life jacket chest. I was so proud of my new figure as I strutted around the sandy bank, showing off. Eventually, I made it to the picnic table where the chips and pop were. The picnic table was burgundy and the paint peeled off in some sections. I have no idea how whoever put the table there got it there, because it was big and heavy, and how did people get a car on this side of the river? I grabbed a paper plate and began to pour the greasy, salty, ruffled fried potato slices onto it when I caught the glare of my aunt and grandma, who were sitting next to each other on the bench of the table. "Take that t-shirt off, you little sissy," my aunt sneered, speaking in a low voice as so others couldn't hear the words that were just meant for me and my grandma. "Boys don't wear shirts when they're swimming, sissy boy. Take that off." The look of disgust on Grandma's face must have left a sour taste in her mouth. Then they both looked at each other and started laughing, my grandma covering her mouth a bit to hide her missing molars. I don't remember what I did after that, but I do remember how I felt. I felt shameful, ridiculous, and unsafe. I don't think I ever told anyone about that before now. That was 14 years ago. This is where I circle back to the opening quote. Our lives are structured around ideas of what is appropriate for a girl and what is appropriate for a boy. Auntie and Grandma felt the need to correct my behavior, which they saw as not conforming to the gender, read sex, that I was assigned at birth. Since I was born with external organs that could produce sperm, I was assigned male at birth. That means that most likely, after I was born, everyone that met me or heard about me for the first time would have asked my mom or whoever was holding me in the moment, "Is it a girl or a boy?" I'm sure after I slid out of the birth canal, the doctor announced, "You have a baby boy." So, because of the organs between my legs, I was led down a path that had been paved for me with the blood, sweat, and tears of all of the other boys assigned at birth who came before me. Here are some rules I was expected to follow as a boy in training. Do not play with dolls. Do not wear pink. Do not jump rope with the girls. Do not wear a t-shirt when you're swimming. Do not sit down when you pee. Do not cry, ever, especially in public. Do not let other boys see you being weak. Do not act like a girl, or you will be called a sissy. And the list goes on. So, were my aunt and grandma trying to steer me in the right path? Were they trying to protect me? Did they have my best interest in mind? Or were they reinforcing certain behaviors that they saw appropriate because they agreed with them? Were they truly appalled by my behavior? I may never know, but here's a guess at the framework that my aunt and grandma used to navigate their world. To them, gender must be equal to sex, and therefore binary, either or, two options only. A baby born with a penis must be a boy, especially in my rural backwoods context where students get the opening day of deer season off of school but not Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday. Almost everyone in my neighborhood is a cousin of some sort, and everyone who works is a blue-collar worker. So, boys must not wear dresses or makeup unless they are actors or politicians. Boys must keep short hair unless they are actors or musicians. Boys must play with trucks and tools unless they are barbers. Then they can play with scissors and brushes and perfumes. Boys must learn to hunt unless they are sissies, and then they are subject to ridicule by both, quote unquote, both genders, etc. Here was my 8-year-old takeaway. Auntie and Grandma are mean. They made me feel bad, and I didn't understand what I had done wrong, even after they explained it. I never trusted them after that. I always felt different and unliked. I don't miss them even though I'm over 400 miles away, and will probably only see Grandma when I go home for summer break. This particular aunt was never a really big part of my life. My and my siblings' lives, anyway. Maybe someday I'll forgive them both. Missing journal entries. Wednesday, November 20th, 2002. Poplar Hall. Tomorrow is Thanksgiving. We didn't have classes since break starts today. And despite that, the dorm sure is empty. I decided to stay here for the long weekend. Home is 14 hours away and too long of a drive for such a short weekend. I'll be missing out on yummy food and family, but it'll be nice just to chill out around here. Some of my friends who are from other countries are here too, but they are traveling to New York City and other places. I'm broke, so I'll be eating my ramen noodles in a styrofoam cup and going clubbing later. On another note, and the main reason I'm writing this entry today, I got my acceptance letter. I'm going to Jaliza to study abroad next term. I can't believe it. I'm more excited than nervous. I don't really have any details yet except for that school starts in February, which means I'll have a longer break. But it does go until June, so I'll lose some of my summer. But I'll be in Jaliza, in a beach town. It's more of a city. The City of the Olive Tree is its nickname. I've done a bit of research, and there are over 400,000 inhabitants, and they are famous for their seafood, especially octopus. What? Also, the region is co-officially bilingual, so I'll get to use some of the Portuguese I've been studying alongside Spanish. Next month, I have to drive up to another university for an orientation and meet some of my fellow exchange students. The way the exchange works, I pay my tuition and room and board here at my university, and the student that I exchanged places with pays their costs, and we just swap places. Pretty cool. Missing journal entries. Wednesday, June 25th, 2003. Avenida de Castrelos. 5 days are left until I'm officially done with my last semester of undergraduate school. These 4 years have flown by, but I feel like I've accomplished, experienced, and adventured more than I ever had within these almost 23 years that I bear. There are so many changes in my life at this time, and I feel as if I'm being overloaded. The worst part is that the future is more foggy than ever, yet I'm really comfortable with the unknown. I'm trying to start a new life on a different continent, in a country whose unemployment rate is extremely high right now and where I'm currently undocumented. I've been living here on an expired visa for several months because I didn't take the necessary actions to get my residency. It was a stupid mistake. Plus, I've fallen in love. I've fallen in love with a land, a linguistic variety, a people, and most of all, a boy. Well, he's a man, but in the gay world we say boy to refer to anyone 18 plus years of age who is dateable. There is no way I can leave now. I have all these plans and future scenarios running through my head and how I will make it possible so that I can stay here. My dad has been a huge financial help, but that will not last much longer. All I really need and desire to do is to become a citizen of the larger union and of countries here. It would be the easiest thing for me to do, yet at the same time, it is going to be extremely difficult. I've got a world of possibilities in front of me as far as employment goes, yet I'm lacking a work permit and legal status, or my English isn't British. Some of my friends think that it would be so great to have my passport, but little do they know that I do almost anything to exchange it to stay here. All I can do is sit here and wait and be the optimist that I am, hoping that the last thing that I have to do is get on a plane and fly back. My country, 'tis of thee, sweet land of manufactured liberty. I don't want to go home. Sunday, July 6th, 2003. Avenida de Castrelos, north of Park. School has been over for a few weeks and summer is in full swing. This city sure feels different now that the rain has stopped. The sun is almost too hot for me. I'm always finding myself looking for shade as I walk up and down the voluptuous streets of this curvaceous city that I've been calling my home for the past 6 months. This part of the world is so hilly. My buns have never been so tight in my life. I had to find a new room to rent a few weeks back. When classes ended, our lease ended as well. My fellow exchange students have all left to go back across the ocean or to stay around and travel to other places that for me always seemed too far away and too expensive. I decided to stay here and look for work. Luckily, I found a place right across the street from where I was staying before, Javi was in my class and just happened to have a spare room. My new roommates seemed nice too. I guess the flat is Javi's and he rents 2 rooms, one to me and the other to Kveta, a student from Bratislava. She told me her name means flower blossom. She's beautiful and reminds me of a dark-haired version of the little girl character that what's-her-name played in that vampire movie, Interview something. I can't remember. She gave me a small picture of herself. It looks like she cut it out of a yearbook. Kveta asked me if my name was Eastern European, and so I told her about my grandpa's parents and how they left that part of the world and started a new life back in the New World. But I couldn't tell her much more than that. Then she told me that I should try and get citizenship through my great-grandparents. I had no idea that that was even an option. She went on to explain how her city used to be part of the same empire before that project ended in the aftermath of World War I. She explained that she was 12 years old when her country split into 2 separate countries, and how people in her part of the world are used to turmoil and conflict. She's such an interesting person. After talking to her, I feel like I know nothing about the larger world, even after living here for over 6 months. I don't even know the stories of my great-grandparents. How did these stories become lost to me and my generation? I guess I'm going to have to get some more information if I'm going to try and pursue getting citizenship through my family. I really hope this is an option. And how much will this cost? And how long will it take? I guess one thing I can do is to start to learn to speak like the locals there. So I found a book here in one of my favorite bookstores. I wish it came with a tape or a CD, though, because I don't know how anything is pronounced. And the book's pronunciation guide is crap. But I did learn one phrase so far. Szeretlek. I love you. P.S. I just got a phone call. I have a job interview tomorrow at a kindergarten up the hill toward the university. My friend Francisca's taking me. Wish me luck. Sunday, July 27th, 2003. Avenida de Castrelos, north of Park. I got a letter from one of my sisters today. She did what I asked of her and had our grandpa and grandma document some of the missing history of grandpa's parents. Here's what grandma wrote for me. Leki Imre, 37 years old, widowed. Born in the capital on May 15th, 1880. Paid own passage of $50 to board ship. He was 17th in line to board to get off ship. He was a peasant. He had $16. He left on December 2nd, 1905, and arrived at immigration on December 17th, 1905. Mokatek Erzsébet, 20 years old, single. Paid own passage of $50 to board ship. She was 16th in line to board ship and to get off. She was a servant. She was born in a smaller town outside of the capital. She had $20. She left on December 2nd, 1905, and arrived at immigration on December 17th, 1905. They met on the ship. They got married in 1905. He worked in a coal mine. They moved to Flint, and he ran a fruit market. They had 7 kids, and then they moved to a farm in Lake Station. He raised beans and cucumbers and sold them. He raised chickens and horses. Wow. How cool to have this family history. When I go back to visit, I'll have to sit down with Grandma and Grandpa and have them tell me some more stories. Just doing the math, there seems to be some holes in the story, but those can be patched later on. This is a great start. There is so much that we don't know. And it would be a shame to lose those stories. We've already lost so much of their heritage. Missing journal entries. Monday, July 27th, 2020. DMV. You told me to start writing stuff down again, so here I am. Better late than never, I guess. I'm still not sure who you are. Since you first contacted me a little over 2 months ago, you are always in my thoughts. I'm so curious about you and the world that you live in. You only told me your name, Bedap. What a curious name. I want to know so much more about you. I've bought in the books you asked for. I also started reading them. I've almost finished The Dispossessed. I've already finished Octavia's Parables. I couldn't put those ones down. They are too good, scary, informative, amazing, and too good. There's so much in those books about the necessity of having a community. I'm learning too that in The Dispossessed as well, having people on whom to rely and with whom to share the tasks of everyday life is essential, not only for survival, because just surviving isn't enough, but also for building relationships through which we experience the joys and the pains of life. All 3 books are awesome, but I have to admit that it was pretty cool when I came upon a character named Bedap in The Dispossessed. When I first read the name, I put the stress on the first syllable, and the E became eh, as in bread. Bedap. But then I played with the pronunciation a bit, putting the stress on the A. Once I said Bedap, it clicked. I'd heard that name before, and then the memory of how you pronounced your name came to me clearly, Bedap. And how is it that you can talk to me through a mushroom? Telepathy? Telekinesis? Through some sort of something that allows you to communicate into the past is the only way that I can make sense of it. Is it indeed a backward movement? Or is your present my future? Happening at the same time as my present, your past? You said, or rather I heard in my mind, that we were somehow related genetically. Who are our mutual connections? How did you manage to connect with me? Why me? I can't help thinking that you aren't even real, that I hallucinated you. Am I delusional? I don't know whether to seek help or just keep my mouth shut. If I am schizophrenic, I'd rather not be locked up unless the voices are asking me to do atrocious things like match my socks. A little humor helps me cope with all of this. Are you going to come back? Will you speak to me again? This waiting is driving me bonkers. I don't know if you'll ever come back. Meanwhile, I started collecting the things you asked for. Besides the books, I'm researching how to make cloth out of stinging nettles. Ouch! How can that be comfortable? And jute, and how not to die while foraging. I started following my new favorite forager on social media. She has a lot of awesome tips and tricks for finding safe foods to eat. And her recipes are awesome too. She's this woman who modifies forager with the word black, which refers to a certain diaspora of people from the African continent. The name itself is a history lesson into ways that white supremacist governments created laws that banned newly freed people from black communities from harvesting wild food in public places like parks and state-owned forests. The idea was to create the conditions so that those formerly enslaved people were forced to go back to their former owners. People legally owned people back then, to beg for work so they could feed themselves and their families. Can you believe that? The thought of those men, they were mostly men who believed the same lie that they themselves fabricated in order to create a privileged group and at the expense of others, the lie of whiteness. Can you imagine the men sitting in their cozy offices creating laws to keep the oppressed populations poor, desperate, and begging? Just the thought of it rages inside of me and makes my hands shake. The idea that this trick has been around and used by powerful people since forever is daunting, and it makes me want it all to just end so that we can start from scratch. Sorry for being so cynical. Anyway, what I'm trying to say is that I'm doing what you've asked. I imagine you must have the need to find your own wild food if you're asking an ancestor from hundreds of years before your time to look up information about it and then write it down, being sure it gets passed down to the next generation. That's wild to think about. You told me to find the relative who has kept the journals. I'm sorry to report that I have not been lucky so far. I will not give up, but who is this relative? How do I know if they are still alive? And if they are dead, who would have gotten the journals? This task you've given me seems impossible, and yet you couldn't stress its importance enough. But you're going to have to give me more information. I need names and dates. I need to know which side of the family to focus on. There are so many questions that I want to ask you. How is it that someone from the future is asking someone from the past to get them research material? Is the future as bad as I imagine it has to be? Is access to historical documents so limited that someone has to time travel to learn more about where they come from? I mean, it must be time travel. What else? There's so much I want to know about you. When are you going to contact me again? It also feels that this is a message in a bottle kind of communique. Will you ever get these journal entries? From the vast ocean, will these floating messages make it to land for one particular person to find? At least the intention of the message in a bottle is for some random person to find the bottle and hopefully then send help to the person who wrote the message. Anyone with a boat or the means to rescue the writer is a welcome recipient. But I'm writing to a specific person, and I have no idea where or when that person is. I'm just supposed to make sure the journals get passed down through the generations. I'm going to need more to go on. You emphasized how important it is that I carry out your wishes and that so much is resting on me being successful. Okay, no pressure. Does sarcasm exist in the future? Monday, September 28th, 2020. BH. I don't know why I'm feeling this way. I mean, it's pretty crappy that I have to turn something that is about someone else, a very special someone who is about to come into this world, into something about me. Something just doesn't feel right about it, though. A good friend of mine invited me and the partner to a so-called gender reveal party for their unborn child. I'd heard of them before, but hadn't thought much about them. It was going to be outside, and we would wear masks and try to keep our physical distance from one another. The pandemic is still killing thousands of people every day. What a strange time to be alive. Basically, before the party, the parents don't know the sex of the baby, and by the time the party will have ended, the parents will have been told the sex, and everyone will scream and clap their hands. The revelation can be done in many ways, and this is where the planner's creativity gets to come into play. At this party, there was a cake with white frosting. The parents would cut into the cake, revealing a pink sponge if it's a girl and blue if it's a boy. I guess this is a fairly new thing that cake and cupcake makers and the bakeries of the world are hired to do. Now, don't get me wrong. It's exciting to celebrate babies. I get it. I'm not interested in raising children full-time myself, but I get why other people do. What I don't understand is why the baby's sex is so important at such a young age, especially to friends and even strangers. Before the party, the baby's sex is determined by a scan that is done using ultrasound technology that involves a lot of sticky gel and a device that is rubbed around the naked, protruding stomach. The device must emit sonic waves that penetrate the womb and allow the technician to capture a distorted image of the fetus. This is mostly done to check on the health of the baby, but people here are obsessed with knowing the sex of their baby so they can plan. This is where it starts to feel yucky to me. How does sex determine the plans for the baby? And why is it a gender reveal party if what is actually being revealed is the baby's sex? I mean, there is an assumption that the baby is going to either have the capability to produce sperm or produce eggs. Having a baby that falls somewhere on the spectrum of intersex is something that I don't even think expecting parents take into consideration. But at a basic level, doesn't it seem strange, even wrong, to announce the genitalia of your child to the public? I mean, why do your friends need to know the sex of your baby unless they're going to help you take care of the baby? Different body parts require special attention, especially when diaper changing is involved, but little else. Before coming to the party, they asked us guests to wear either pink or blue. Pink if the baby is a girl, blue if the baby is a boy. This is where things get messy and weird for me. The elephant in the room, the unspoken assumption, is that if you are born with a penis, you will be a boy, and all the gifts that you buy for the baby will either be blue, but rarely pink, and there will be little baby shirts that say things like, "Little Mr. Steal Your Girl," or "On Sundays we watch," insert a picture of a football, with daddy, or "Mommy's New Man." And the right-wingers and their vocal politicians say that we, from the LGBTQIA2 Spirit Plus spectrum, are sexualizing their children with drag shows. Little Mr. Steal Your Girl not only sexualizes your child, but it perpetuates a key tenet of patriarchy in which girls are for the taking by men. Now that I'm writing about it, I think I figured out what bothers me so much. A basic, unspoken, agreed on understanding at these parties is that there are only two genders. A baby is born with one of them. And this is where the cuteness breaks down into ugliness for me. When I was born, my parents decided I was going to be a boy because I was born with a penis and testes. Now, I'm sure it wasn't just my parents. I can imagine that all the staff at the hospital also congratulated my mom, Dad wasn't there, on "your new baby boy." Binary gender is the socially accepted norm in mainstream institutions like healthcare and family. Insert me into this binary norm. Growing up, I wanted to play with my sisters, who were also given a gender at birth, while they were playing with their dolls and doll houses. I mean, the fast food drive-through toy was the coolest. On special occasions, we got to get nuggets or a cheeseburger, and we usually went through the drive-through. How cool to do that with dolls. Then I'd hear from someone, mostly mom or dad, who didn't like that I played with dolls. Why is he playing with dolls? Or get outside and do boy things. I have this one memory where my mom came to school during recess, and she and the recess monitors watched us kids play. We must have been in the 2nd or 3rd grade. I was playing jump rope with my friends, all girls at the time, when my mom came up to me and asked why I didn't want to play with the boys. I just remember that jumping and skipping rope was fun, and all those songs and senseless rhymes were so cool, until I discovered the underlying racial bigotry in some of them later on in life. One time, my mom took my brother and I to the store in town, and we got to pick out outfits. It was the late 80s, and neon colors were all the fashion. My mom said we could pick out a pair of shorts and a shirt from the rack with the fluorescent blue, pink, green, and yellow matching tops and bottoms. My brother chose the green and I chose the pink. It was super cool. I remember being so excited. All my friends wore pink after all. Later that day, my dad gave my mom a bunch of crap for letting me pick out a pink outfit. I'm pretty sure he was mortified, but he let me wear the outfit to his buddy's house up the road. The old man had always been really nice to me, and to this day, I think it was sincere. My dad made some smart-ass comment about my clothes, and the friend looked at me and said, "Can I call you Pinky?" Of course he could. I was thrilled. One of my uncles always called me Twink. I never knew what it meant to him or in general. In the gay community, a twink is a young, usually skinny guy. Nowadays, if the twink has muscles, you can call him a twunk. A combination of twink and hunk. This same uncle used to make fun at my expense all the time, especially around my brother and cousins. I used to have this purple bike with a banana seat and a basket in front with ribbons that flowed from the handlebars. Its frame was designed in a way that a skirt could be worn without causing a wedgie. Someone had gotten it for me in a yard sale. A bike was a bike when you were poor. My uncle proudly christened my bike as the fairy bike. I remember it making me feel really bad at the time. Now, I'm proud of my fairy bike, mainly because I'm a proud fairy. One time, I was outside in the parking lot of the fast food equivalent of a hair salon. $8 for a boy's cut, $15 for a girl's. I must have been about 13 or 14. I'd recently had my hair permed, but it gave me more of a mushroom hairdo than the gorgeous curls that I'd hoped for. By that time, I had grown some boobs, and my nipples protruded a bit from my t-shirts. I used to put Band-Aids over them so they weren't so obvious. It wasn't that weird for me to have little boobies. My dad and brother both had them, the former because he was always chubby. I wasn't very chubby in the stomach, so my boobs stuck out a bit. So there I was, standing in the parking lot of a college town when a car drove by and yelled out in my direction, "Is that a guy or a girl?" Laughter. I looked around and I was the only person outside in my immediate surroundings. I hid and cried. In high school, I was called gay and fag and other terms that were supposed to be insults. I took them as insults at the time, but how is being gay an insult for me now? It just isn't. It was used as a way for others to bully me, and it worked. I hated myself. I hated that I was girly. I hated that I had little boobies. I hated that I had to make excuses for why I didn't want to hang out with the guys. And it wasn't until I discovered the locker room among my boy peers that I started getting strange sensations and would daydream. Now, I love being gay, but am I gay? Could I be something else? The more I think of the term gay, the more it doesn't sit well with me. It describes a sexuality based on an assumption of gender and assigned sex. If I'm not a man, how can I be gay for being sexually attracted to some men? I'm not a woman. I'm not a man. But I am sexually attracted to masculine men, but also to feminine ones. At university, I used to buy so-called girls' jeans because they had the fit that I was going for, tight on the legs, fitting around the hips, and boot cut so the legs flared around my shoes. And at the same time, I didn't have a lot of facial hair, and if it did grow in, I'd shave it off completely, mainly because it was patchy at best. I had an adorable baby face, though. My friends and I would go out clubbing a lot. One night, I wore big hooped earrings and a cream-colored turtleneck. With my girly jeans, my boobies protruding and tightening the fabric in that area of my chest. Standing in line to the Wednesday night drag show, I heard several people looking in my direction. Who's she? I haven't seen her here before. To this day, I never use the she pronoun unless I'm with my friends. It's normal for my gay guy friends to refer to each other as she. It's also normal for them to denigrate women and vaginas, and that has never been okay with me. My whole life, I was made to feel somehow bad about the gender that was prescribed to me. Later on, I convinced myself that I was a gay guy, never man. Man is a word that I'd never use to describe myself, ever. I can check off male on the form, but never man. I've also never identified as a woman. I do identify as girly or sissy, and if I have a moment of manliness, I'll comment on how butch I am, but it's always jocular, never serious. So here lies the problem. How does someone like me fit into the gender binary? I'm not a man, and I'm also not a woman. Sometimes I feel like conforming to the gender that was prescribed to me. Since my mid-30s, I sport a beard. I love how my face looks in a beard, but I also like to get my nails done. I wear dresses from time to time. I love long cardigans that are bought in the so-called women's sections at the store. Growing up and not conforming to the gender relations that were expected of me made life difficult. It still does. I don't feel comfortable wearing my nightgown to the mailbox for fear of being bullied or worse, murdered. In 2020 alone, a human rights organization that tracks such things reported over 40 violent, fatal attacks against transgender and gender nonconforming people. According to the statistics, the perpetrators overwhelmingly target Black trans people. But people like me who are racialized as white are also at risk, especially where I live. This number is based on reports filed. How many incidents have gone unreported? The gender binary isn't an innocent idea. For those of us who don't fit within its strict limits, often don't feel safe. So-called gender reveal parties only perpetuate the idea that gender is binary and based on sex. Why don't we call it a sex reveal party? That's what it is, after all. Maybe because, look, my baby has a penis seems weird. But if you think about it, saying that your baby is a girl or a boy in today's society is saying that your baby has a vagina or a penis. It is weird either way. To the untaught parent who doesn't realize that putting their child in a gender binary based on sex could have some unfortunate consequences for their dear baby someday. Are you open to change? Could you celebrate your baby without celebrating their genitals? Because from my perspective, and from the perspective of many others, your baby's penis or vagina is unimportant. Unless you give me the honor of helping you take care of your baby, then I'll be sure that I know how to clean their body properly when changing their diaper. And for those of you parents who have already thrown your baby into a binary, if your baby decides one day that they no longer fit into the role you gave them, will you throw them another gender reveal party? A true one? From my perspective, a true gender reveal party will be thrown when the child is old enough to decide. Just because the tendency is to choose a gender for your baby at birth, thanks to the ideas of common sense and consumerism, doesn't make it right. I know it's not easy. When you enroll your child into school, they will ask you to fill out a form that indicates their genitalia. When you go to buy clothes, there's only a boys and a girls section. When you find out that you're pregnant, everyone asks you, is it a boy or a girl? When your child goes to use a public restroom on their own, they will usually have two options, men's or women's. Not every public place has a family restroom where someone can go in and lock the door behind them. I worry for my little cousin, who was raised to be a girl, but who looks, talks, and dresses like a boy. I worry for little cousin's safety when they get older. Some Karen someday may just scream at my little cousin when they enter the women's restroom because they'll be mistaken for a man. Security may then come in and drag them out and their pants around their ankles, like has happened to so many trans people, including genderqueer and non-conforming trans people. So, here's my wish. I hope that someday gendering babies based on their sex assigned at birth will be abolished, not by force, but through practice and by recognizing its potential harm. I hope I'm around to see that day come. In some places it has already arrived. I was visiting a university a few years back for a talk. The restrooms outside this one particular auditorium struck me as different. Instead of men or women labels on the doors, the signs on each door described what was in the bathroom. On one door, a picture of a toilet, and on the other door, a picture of a toilet and a urinal. There was another restroom labeled family with a picture of a diaper changing station. My auntie and I both entered the same restroom and occupied different stalls. After finishing our business, we washed our hands at the sink. There was a stranger who presented as a man, a few sinks down from her. When we left, I asked her if she felt unsafe, and she said no. Was it because I was there? I asked. I don't know, she replied. I think it's because I wasn't in a women's restroom. It felt like everyone and anyone belonged in there. Me saying this is not to minimize the real fear that women, cis or trans, may experience in the bathroom. That is not my goal. My only goal is to point out the possibilities of what a future looks like when everyone gets to have access to a restroom for their particular needs, not just men and women. Why is it that men and women get to have special restrooms, but not other genders? Back to me. Did my parents intentionally want to cause me social harm by putting me into the wrong gender category based on a binary? I don't think so. I think they were just doing what most everyone else did and still does. I don't think they were thinking at all, just doing, like little social robots, doing what everyone else does, thinking of the possible consequences. Wednesday, January 6th, 2021, BH. I saw pictures of a Confederate flag being waved inside the Capitol today, after it was taken over by a mob of supporters of the Mandarin King. That's what I like to call him. I don't trust politicians, so I'm not concerned about them. What I worry about is that the people who want Mandarin King in place as a dictator might eventually succeed. That will be a sad day for us who fear being caged or murdered for not fitting in with the so-called norm. I'm sad for my friends who are a part of the African diaspora, especially those who come from ancestors who were forced to come here and work as chattel slaves and who were bought and sold like cattle in the South and then later the Confederacy. I'm not sad for this country, this project. This project is a joke. But I am sad for the Black people that live here and who have to face such virulent hatred from people who think and who have always been told that they are white and somehow special, even superior. I don't have the energy to write anymore today. Monday, March 8th, 2021, BH. I've been doing some research on eating insects. You asked for information on foraging, so I assumed you meant not only for plants, but for insects as well. It's amazing how many people in this world eat insects. According to one source, as of today, there are 2 billion people worldwide that eat insects. That's a little over a quarter of the world's population. The big question is, why don't I eat insects? I have eaten insects. Silkworm hot pot in Shandong province, the waxworm from a bottle of tequila. Sometimes I find little bodies of some beetle-like insect in my rice. I try to rinse them out, but I doubt I get them all out. I'm sure they come from hatched eggs that end up in the grains before harvesting, but I don't incorporate insects in my diet. And after doing some reading, not all insects are edible. So what kind of insects are good to eat? I'll give you a recipe that I found for at least one insect. Roasted grasshoppers. Half onion chopped for flavor. Some oil for frying. Salt to taste. Paprika to taste. 10 to 20 grasshoppers. Clean the outside of the grasshoppers, then boil them until they turn a reddish color. Remove the wings and legs. Heat your oil and fry the grasshoppers over medium heat until crispy. Remove from heat and drain the oil from the grasshoppers. Once they are dry, sprinkle the paprika and salt. Garnish with fresh onion. You can eat them on your own or add them to your other dishes as nutritious, crunchy toppings. Because of the poisonous pesticides that people put on their plants and flowers, it can be dangerous to eat insects that are caught in the wild. I don't know if that's something you have to contend with or not, but I just wanted to add it as a disclaimer. Happy crunching. Friday, May 7th, 2021, BH. I'm mourning for youth today, especially that little me who was really struggling with their assigned gender back in the early 90s, and for my little cousin who is exploring their gender identity. So far this year, 17 anti-LGBTQIA Two-Spirit Plus bills have been enacted just here alone. Over 250 bills have been introduced in state legislatures, including at least 35 bills that would make it prohibitive for transgender youth when accessing best practices, age-appropriate, gender-affirming medical care. But mommy and daddy can buy their cisgender daughter a boob job for her 17th birthday because they gave her their consent. Around 70 bills have been introduced that would make it impossible for transgender youth, including college students, from playing in sports according to their gender identity. Over 40 bills would allow people to profess a religious belief as a justifiable reason for not abiding by the law or providing services to people whose gender identity they disapprove of. At least 15 bills would prohibit transgender people from accessing restrooms or locker rooms according to their gender identity. This is extremely dangerous. Just going to the bathroom in a public place could get you arrested or worse. Where do I pee if I stop at a rest area on the highway that doesn't have a family restroom? This constant attack from the overarching powers is exhausting. By targeting transgender people specifically, these bigots are basically clearing a path for more radicalized transphobes to pull out their AR-15s and murder more innocent lives. They, the politicians, have to know that. Is that why they do it? Keep us afraid, and then they won't have to see us out in public? Is that their goal? Sunday, August 15th, 2021, BH. My mind is still blown. I can't believe that this is happening. It's all happening so quickly. Since we last spoke, or whatever it is that we do, so much has happened. I haven't told him, the partner, about you. Yet, I have promised to tell him. It's just that so much is happening so quickly. I wasn't going to tell him until you contacted me again. I hadn't quite been convinced that you weren't just a figment of my overactive imagination. I mean, talking to someone who claims to be a descendant of one of my siblings from the future. Oh, and by the way, we talked through a mushroom. Yeah, I'm not sure how that is going to go over. I'll tell him, though, now that I'm 100% convinced that you are real. Okay, 90% convinced. The strange thing is that just 2 days after you called me this last time, he, the partner, asked me if I wanted to move. He's been working from home since the pandemic began, and even though we just moved to this new house less than a year ago, we can live almost anywhere now. How about north? He asked. You mean like up near the border, where Gary lives? I asked excitedly. I was more excited for him than for myself. What was I going to do there in such a small town? Sure, let's do it. I'll figure something out to do. Maybe I can finally motivate myself to keep writing. Are we sure? I mean, we just moved here. We bought patio blocks, for Christ's sake. And you just put in the new compost. He fumbled around his words, unable to believe that he was actually considering it. Then, as I inevitably do when I find myself looking for a new job, I log onto the go-to website in my industry and search for job posts in all the places I dream to live and teach in someday. What was next led to some really cool things happening. I found a posting at a school in the hometown of my great-grandma on my dad's side of the family. It's basically a small town in the Pannonian Plain with a population of around 12,000. So the chance of it being listed on this website was infinitesimal. What? Your grandpa's mom? That's so cool. He was truly surprised. Are you going to apply? No way. That means we would be apart for at least a school year. Do we really want to do that again? Was he being serious? I think you should totally apply. His tone was sincere. You've been studying with your language tutor for the past year. Now's a good time to go and put your hard work to use. He was serious. Okay, I'll at least send an email to see if they have any openings and how the hiring process works. Was this really happening? On Monday, I got an email saying that they needed someone last minute and if I was able to do a phone interview that same evening. Fast forward, they offered me a job in the capital. I was hoping to be in my grandma's village and try and find my family, but that position was already taken. I can travel there at least. Just to step foot where she and her family have possibly walked. How cool. So I accepted the offer. I can't believe I'm going. Now you can see why my mind's blown. Do you have that expression when you are? For me, it means that something impossible or at least improbable has happened to me or I've witnessed it happening. The something is so unthinkable that my brain has trouble processing that it is real. I mean, I've been trying to go and live there since like 2003, when I first heard that I could possibly get EU citizenship. Now, 23 years later, I'm going there to teach. I'm speechless. And the most incredulous aspect of this entire affair is that it happened only just a few days after you told me that I needed to take the books to this same city. Writing it makes it seem more unbelievable. Am I certain that I didn't dream it? You told me, buy a yellow equipment case. It should be just big enough to hold the 3 books. Don't worry about the other journals for now. But be sure to print what you've written so far. Also, I need you to write these instructions on the inside of the front cover of The Dispossessed. Here are the cryptic instructions. B and T go to OT at the next full hold. Ask for the front cover. Bring along the book. Then you left me with these last words before you disappeared. You are going to be going away soon. Put everything that I've asked for you into the yellow case box and take it with you. When it's time, I'll give you further instructions. So you'll need to find a place where mushrooms grow. Be sure to walk by that place every day and look for a mushroom that glows green. I have no idea what any of this is for, but I'll do as I'm told. I've decided not to tell him about you after all. I think it's best that we keep this between you, me, and whoever's going to read this in the future. Takver looks over at Bedap, who is sitting up in their pallet bed, the coverless book in their hands. The next full hold is tonight, Sib. Makk's sudden name change hadn't really had an impact on her because she still used the nickname she gave them before they'd become Bedap. Bedap is staring down at the book, obviously in a deep thought. Then they looks up at Takver. The strange thing is, Tak, I was just saying that we should go see old Tatos, and then older me asked if we'd gone yet. Now, this Trell character is telling B and T to go to OT and take the book. Bedap bites their lip like they tends to do when they's working out a problem. I hate the thought of going, Takver staring down at her feet and shaking her head, but I can't deny all the obvious signs that are telling us to go see her. Now she's standing up, her arms tight to her side and her fists clenched. Promise me that you won't just trust her, Sib. Promise. What do you mean, Tak? Bedap is staring at her again. What's the point of us even going if we can't give them a chance to help us? And in order for them to help us, we have to trust them. They switched you and Palat at birth. It had to be on purpose. I mean, look at you. You're as pink as a clover flower. Me, Gomba, Palat, almost everyone else I know is several shades darker than you. How could that have been a mistake? Old Tatos had to know that you came out of the mother. And yet, they switched you. I just can't trust her. Them. After learning to resent them. Ever since I remember Mother talking about you, I started hating them. You asked me before if I was afraid of them. Yes, I am, but I hate them more. Takver flops down on her pallet, tears welling up in her beautiful dark eyes, fists still clenched. The ring doesn't even shift with the sudden jolt. I'm sorry, Tak. Bedap puts down the book and stands up and walks over to her, sitting down to her left. I can't possibly know how you are feeling, but I've lost a brother too, and mine can be found. I'm sorry that yours can't. Silence. Then Bedap starts up again. That's why we need old Tatos's help. They know things. They hold the key. And the instructions indicate B and T. That means both Bedap and Takver have to go. Bedap takes Takver by the hand and looks at her from the side. Tears are dripping from her eyes, leaving wet spots on the lap of her beetroot-dyed frock. Let's get some rest. I say we leave as soon as hold is out. We can get up a little before and have a good meal before leaving. How long is the journey from here? After a few moments, Takver replies. We're about 20-minute foot from the compound. Then we cross the bridge, and their hovel is about an hour's foot from the bridge. But crossing the bridge is no easy task. It is littered with the vehiculars from the old world, and parts of the actual structure are crumbling apart. Bedap is giving her a blank look, as if they isn't understanding anything that is coming out of her mind speak. You've really never been to the bridge? Takver is truly shocked. Growing up, us kids were always pushing the boundaries of the Fridge, the treaty. The bridge was a neutral zone. Since our people had established a permanent settlement when we split from the Athmaneti, we don't do the water fetching anymore. We learn about it, but ever since the split, the newly turned 16s go to the bridge and hang out. They invite their friends too, some of whom aren't 16 or a bit older. It's a big bully. She pauses briefly and then continues. I never got my chance, sadly. Who was I going to celebrate with after they'd all been taken away? Silence. Then Takver picks up where she left off. When we were younger, some friends and I snuck up to the bridge to watch the small group of 16s and their friends partying. In the light of hold, we watched as they... The patina of the crisscross metalwork glitters in the moonlight, several tens of meters above the river surface. For centuries, the chain-type bridge, with its cantilever truss and suspended middle span, has been a place for the youth to commingle and pass the nighttime hours. Whether Takver's people or the university students and tourists from a handful of centuries before, this late 19th century link between the western hills and the eastern flat plain has called out to the youth. and the youth has always answered. From the Journals of Trell, Wednesday, September 1st, 2021, flat number 27. This is my second week teaching here. My colleagues seem mostly amazing. I can pick up a few words here and there in the teacher's room, but for the most part, I'm left in the dark. It's fine, though. I love listening to them speak to each other. I picture my great-grandparents chatting with their friends at the Biot's market, selling their cucumbers and beans. I have a crap ton of students. I don't know if I'll learn all of their names, but I'll try. I can definitely tell my seniors have senioritis. They are so ready to be done. It's going to be hard to keep them engaged, but we'll make it work. I met a fellow genderqueer person today. They is one of my sophomores. We were talking about the Don't Say Gay law that the administration passed this last summer. Of course, it's not just about gay people. It's an attack on LGBTQIA, Two-Spirit Plus people in general. The legislation outlaws sharing information with students under the age of 18 that the administration considers to be promoting homosexuality or gender change. Does that mean I, someone who presents as a man, because I'm afraid to be a genderqueer person here, can't talk about my husband? I mean, my colleague talks about her husband all the time, especially because he used to be a teacher here in the same school. What a bunch of fear-mongering bullcrap. I made myself a promise that I would break the law every day in class. So, in class today, we talked about the meaning of the recent popularized slogan, Oz Chalad, which roughly translates to family is family. It was a good discussion, and most of the students, all of whom were under 18, shared their opinions about the law. After class, one of the more vocal students came up to me and told me that they prefer the they pronoun. I told them that I do as well, and then we had a moment. They are so brave at such a young age. I don't have big enough ovaries to share my true gender identity with my colleagues or students yet. Maybe I'll get there. Later that day, in another class, I brought up the topic of pronouns to a group of seniors. One student in particular interrupted my presentation and told me, "We don't use the they pronoun here in this country. It's weird." My heart broke in half for my sophomore student who does use the they pronoun. Fighting the good fight is exhausting, but I won't ever stop fighting it. Saturday, October 2nd, 2021, flat number 27. Today I went and explored the other side of the river, and for the first time I walked across the bridge. Of course, there are other bridges, but somehow this bridge seems extra special. The color reminds me of the Statue of Liberty, sea green patina. It was dark by the time I walked across it on my way back to my flat. To my surprise, there seemed to be a party happening. Someone had a guitar and others chimed in, singing an unknown song. Instead of suspension cables, this bridge has trusses that are held together by a combination of rivets and steel. Thanks to the mathematical equations that go into creating such static structures with a diagonal web-like appearance, the bridge maintains its position over a small section of this almost 3,000-kilometer-long river. Where the webs intersect and form the lowest points near the graded steel road and the walkways, people in groups of 2, 3, or 4 sit together, drinking their beers and spirits, while chatting, guitar strings and singing accompanying the din of the pedestrians and car and bicycle traffic. It's quite a spectacle. The way people drink and hang out in the street like that reminds me a bit of the old botellón scene from my university days back in Jaliza. Good times. Oh, I went to see the family house too, like you told me to. I know you already know this, Bedap, but I'm putting this in here for whoever else might need to know. 2 years after the end of the Second World War in 1947, my dad's older sister, my grand auntie, received letters from her older brother and his family who lived on this side of the ocean. The letters had the return address from a house in one of the suburbs of the capital city. Today, I took 3 buses and walked past tens of streets named after nut and fruit trees to visit that house. Nobody was home. I rang the gate buzzer twice. I don't even know if it's the same house that my family lived in. Maybe I'll never know. Maybe I'll never know who planted the sour cherry tree out front, the one that towers over the uniquely wrought iron covered walkway with its green grape leaf screen that stretches from the gate to the front door. And the gated front yard is rather big for local standards. Maybe it's because the house is set far back on the small plat of land, discordant with the neighboring dwellings, whose houses butt up against the street. The roof of the house is special too. Unlike many of the houses around it, with their rectangular frame and a single, gradual peaked roof that forms a triangle that just covers it enough to keep the rain from dripping down its facade. This house has two angular bell-shaped gables that rest at either end of an elongated, dark clay, brown-like crown. 3 large arched windows sit evenly spaced at the parapet. I can't help but picture my granduncle sitting in his chair reading folk tales to his little daughter and son, my first cousins once removed, while the sunlight pours through these generous windows. I wonder if people here have always built fences and other barriers around their gardens. I've been here for over a month, and I've yet to see any living quarters that weren't somehow gated or fenced off. Even in the complex of flats where I live, we need a key fob to open the gate. And behind almost every fenced-in garden or yard, there's a dog stealthily waiting for you to get just close enough so they can start barking and scare the crap out of you. There is no dog at the family house. A dog may be able to help deter burglars and thieves, but keritesh kutyak, literally fence dogs, as I like to call them, can't do much to deter bombs dropping from planes. The letters that have this house as a return address were mailed in January of 1947, but that date doesn't match up with the bombings of the capital, which forced my uncle and his family to seek shelter in a bunker. Here's a translation of the letters. I can imagine Great Uncle Pishta, whom I never met, by the way, sitting at a cold desk, maybe in one of these gables with the arched windows, first in October, then in January, seeing his breath freeze before his eyes as he writes in beautiful cursive. Dear Erjike, we received your kind letter, and before that, the money, but it was exchanged for local currency, and I would have preferred your money. Thank you very much for your kindness, which you have shown to us so many times. The money served us very well, and so did the other thoughtful packages. Unfortunately, we had to get help from others, and we are suffering due to the almost worse conditions than immediately after the war. The prices are so high, and there is a shortage of food due to this year's great drought. As a result, the rations are so small that there's not enough food for mere subsistence. For example, most basic food like potatoes. I'm not even talking about flour because it is not possible to buy it at all. The only food left is from the black market, and it's too expensive. Now, during my vacation, I am at Yulishka's place on the other side of the country to get some potatoes and flour that they had to spare from their own supply, which is much cheaper than back in the capital. Unfortunately, producers can't sell because they also have to worry about eating. I had to give up waiting on the train. It's been over 2 weeks and it still hasn't arrived. Now, our biggest problem is that if the train doesn't arrive, then all our winter food is lost and it can't be replaced. We also had to work here when we had peace, and we didn't need the help of others because everyone could get what they needed. But now there's a life and death struggle for the daily bite. I also really want one of you to come, but only to visit because you wouldn't stay here anyway, because Erjike, think about how it feels to have to give up all the fat and the most basic food and potatoes now because there isn't any. I really believe it'd be a bad idea for you to live here because there are only 2 of you, and surely time is running out to have kids. You get old, you don't have a child that you really want, and so it's not good to stay here forever for someone who is in such a fortunate position. And for us, going to you is a complete impossibility. But, my dear Erjike, Come just to visit, and you will see what life is like here. We also received a letter from father and family. Please pass on our loving greetings to them. But to be honest, the daily worries take up so much time that I am forced to write less often. Once again, we thank you all very much. We send many kisses to Mariška. Marika and little brother mention Auntie Erzike and Mariška every day when they put on their clothes. Each then kisses your father's loving hand. We all love you, Pishta and family. Rako sent Mihai, 22nd of October, 1947. Dear Erzike, I don't even know how to thank you for the kind gifts you got for us. We were excited to open the package and very happy. I wish you could have been here to see her happy face when Marika held the little dress that you sent. The kids were so excited to get a package that they want to keep opening it every day. Mama is also very happy with the many beautiful things, and I wish, my dear Erzike, that Ishten will give you 1,000 times more than what you have given us, and I can only offer thanks for your kindness. My dear Erzike, we received your letters that you wrote last year, but I did not answer it because the difficulty of the current living conditions and the search for work is exhausting. It's so exhausting that I am so tired that even writing a letter is difficult for me because life is full of a lot of worries. Stress completely binds all the strength of man. We also received a letter from our father before Christmas. I replied in more detail and asked him to hand over our letter to you and Mariška. I hope you've got it since. We also received a package from Mariška, both of which arrived within a week, so that our happy, unexpected joy has had a very good effect on our great sorrow, for we still have such a sad, troubling life, which worries us more than anything. The little 3.5-year-old Pituka has been diagnosed with hip tuberculosis, and this has necessitated a cast. So the poor little guy is wrapped in plaster from waist to toe, which is completely stiff. He can only lie on his back or on his stomach. He can't even sit up because the whole body is rigid due to the plaster. For the time being, 6 weeks from now, they will tell us about his fate. We hired an ambulance service that was able to take us in this case. Unfortunately, we live in a different world now, and his health issues aren't the worst problem. If Ishten is generous, he'll restore our little boy's health as soon as possible. Medically, this disease is very serious and long-lasting, but we hope that Ishten will help him and that there will be no complications that will last for many years. Otherwise, thank Ishten, we are in Marika's 8th year as a student. We thank Ishten that she is healthy. However, she is only able to study at home because the school is closed due to the lack of firewood during the winter. We work a lot, pretty much day and night, in order to repair parts of our house because the war wreaked havoc. My dear Erzike, on behalf of all of us, thank you very much for the package, and may Ishten bless you. We send you a lot of kisses with love. Pishta and family. Rako sent Mihai, 18th January 1947. 76 years have passed since Uncle Pishta wrote those letters. Food shortage doesn't seem to be an issue now, not at least for the lucky haves like me. The never-haves, I'm sure, still struggle to get the food they need. It makes me think, did Uncle Pishta not know how to forage? Rereading these translated letters, I can understand why you asked me to document so much. I've been reflecting, and now, more than ever before, I feel the need to learn how to glean the forests and meadows for my own food. I'm lucky right now that I don't have to go without, but who knows what will happen in my lifetime. Maybe potatoes will be worth their weight in gold someday, again. Thanks for listening to another episode of Fenn Thornbot Reads. If you want a notification for the next episode, don't forget to hit subscribe. If you liked what you listened to today, hit the like button. And if you think somebody else might like it, hit the share button. Thanks again, and we'll catch you next time. You can interact with the book online at fennthornbot.fan or just scan the QR code above. And may Hold guide you as naught makes itself scarce.